Welcome to the first episode of DoubleLife Exposed, a 6-part series taking an in-depth look at each track on singer-songwriter Christian Beach's recently released EP, DoubleLife. So joining us, of course, is the artist himself, Christian Beach. Christian, how are you?
Doing great, Brian. How are you? Great to see you tonight.
Same here. Doing excellent. So let's start by quickly discussing the EP as a whole. After spending the 1990s and early 2000s in industrial and alternative rock bands, you made the transition to solo singer-songwriter in the mold of artists like Bob Dylan, The Band, Hank Williams Sr., and Jeff Tweedy. And that's pretty much the sound of your 2009 self-titled solo debut album. Now, a decade plus later, you released the DoubleLife EP, your first formal collection of songs since the 2009 album. And you described this project as producer-focused. How did the EP come about, and what came first, the songs or the idea of approaching this first as a producer?
Yeah, the songs always come first. And before I started working on this EP, I had a bunch of songs that I was intending on releasing, a full-length CD. So that would have been easier if I just went in, just recorded basic tracks and kept it, stripped down, maybe do some overdubs here and there, or get some friends on to add on to it a little bit. But the more I went into it, and I also like to record. That's also sort of a hobby of mine as well. I assembled some new equipment, a lot of new plugins where I can do more sonically. And I've always been into music that was that was also layered and a little bit more enriched. So I wanted to kind of combine both worlds, and I wanted to get into the producing side of it. The way I did it was without sounding too convoluted. I wanted to basically be a project where I was the producer and I was just playing the parts of the different musicians, and even the writer as well. So the basic song structures, were done, either just the music or lyrics. Usually they came pretty much in tandem for the most part. So I had a lot of songs that I was working on, but I whittled them down because they didn't seem to fit the format that I was looking for. So I wanted something that was more sonically layered, a little more complex in terms of sound, but not as lyrically dense, I guess. So sort of my template for the songs were, and from a lyrical context, what I was going for is something that was a little bit more, obtuse. Again, not lyrically dense. So I had some songs that sort of veered in that direction, that were just more, songs I still do that are more lyrically focused. Whereas this project, I wanted more, production focused. Of course, not to take away from the songs too much, but I just wanted to have fun with it and experiment with some different sounds, and pull in some different things, some electronics. Kind of did a lot of experimentation with the guitars, electric guitars, percussion, and just sort of went wild with some of the interesting plugins that are out there, like the Sound Toy stuff, which I had a blast with. So that was pretty much it. So I had probably 12 to 15 songs I was working on at that time. Whittled them down to these six, right? 6 on the EP.
Yes.
And it would have taken too long if I did a full length CD, because I was working out a lot of the kinks with the sound, the studio and just experimenting with different sounds, which I haven't done in a while, so it was different than just recording acoustic guitar, piano, and then putting some tracks over it. I had to really put a lot more time into it, and it took a lot of time. Just the nuances, really. It's that 95% of it's there, but it's just that 5% that you really need to nail to get the sound that I wanted. So that's what took a lot of time to do. Kind of a long-winded answer, I guess. But
we have all the time in the world. And I've heard you mention in another interview that the title DoubleLife kind of comes from the duality of your personal life and your musical life. But hearing all these electronic touches on what is still basically an Americana type record brings to mind the duality of your musical past, which included mostly electronics at the beginning, which I know all too well, and your musical present. Was that maybe a subconscious aspect of selecting the title?
Sure, I think it could be interpreted that way. That's why I like DoubleLife, because it's open to a lot of different interpretations. But sure, I think that sort of manifested itself on this project, and I think that's really due to me working alone, and not really by choice, but my working hours are a little bit not exactly prime time. So to get other musicians in, to get some other folks in was sort of tough. But I knew exactly what I wanted to accomplish with this with this silo of songs. I knew it had to be structured in a certain way, and there was some fluidity that happened. It seems to be more cohesive with me just doing everything with these songs. So that again, that brought in some other elements of just the experimentation side of it, and creating more of a sonic landscape, because I still love ambiance. That's nothing I haven't really done too much in my recordings with sort of ambiance. So I didn't want it to be electronic focused. It's it's like you said, it's more Americana, it's more acoustic focused, but you have a landscape out there, just visually of other things going on that sort of add another dimension to the song and songs. And that's something that I still want to explore in the next project as well, maybe in a slightly different way. I just kind of stumbled upon something that I'm still sort of crafting a little bit. So that's sort of, and a lot of it was kind of fun to go back and just do, some of these, crazy, synthesizer keyboard overdubs. There's not that much real synthesizer on it. It's a lot of tape loop based sounds, like Mellotron, Orchestron, but put through different effects. There's a little, synthesizer type of stuff on there as well, hidden in the background. But it was fun to do. It was fun to do the layering and then just come up with, different ideas that support the song in a subtle way, I guess.
Well, the timing of the EP is perfect for a mostly DIY project, since it came out at the beginning of lockdown, and so everybody was in isolation. So this project that was mostly you, except for one mandolin part on track 4 or 5, I believe track 5, is it, on Desert Places? Yeah, so you have mostly this DIY project that comes out in the middle of a time when you were on your own, so it seemed appropriate for that. But let's talk about the first track. Let's get into No Use Writing a Song, which right from the start opens with a quiet sonic collage that sets up what is really a big sounding song, especially for you, since you became a singer-songwriter in this genre. So we'll take a look at an in-depth look at the recording of the song later, but what are we hearing at the beginning there?
In the beginning, the introduction. So that is actually a collage of the drum track, a couple drum tracks that were just snippets of when I was testing out the drums before the actual track begins. So there was just some nonsense drumming going on. Initially, I had a guitar, like an electric guitar part that was an introduction, but I don't know, it just sounded cliched or something to me. So I dumped that, and I wanted something just more ambiguous. So I just took the drum track, reversed it, and slowed it down, and using a lot of the Sound Toys stuff, which I love. There's just a suite of plugins that just can totally destruct your audio. It tears it apart, rips it apart, and puts it back together again in cool, unique ways. It's actually pretty easy to do. So it's just a combination of the drums, and I also took the piano, which is going on, in the verse, reversed it, and just kind of it built up a crescendo. Because when the piano first comes in the song, you have that crescendo, so it's just kind of like the reverse, kind of. I think Queen did that, right? And another one bites it up or something, where it's just like a crescendo, and then the backward piano comes in. So I just created that as an introduction. I knew that this was going to be the first song on the EP, and I wanted something a little different, I guess, in that area. Plus, it just goes with the sort of chaos and helplessness of the feeling of the song, which just kind of feels like it's precious building. That's the whole idea. Is it starts with nothing and ends, like it's ready to blast off when you finally get into the last chorus.
Right. Speaking of the song itself, the desperation and chaos, which is another thing that's seemingly appropriate at the moment. It's interesting that it seems like an anti-anthem anthem. How did that evolve with this song?
Yeah, I guess you could say it's an anti-anthem. It was sort of a revolt of newer music now that doesn't have sort of the same impact that it did from worse. So the song itself was inspired heavily by the band. I was listening to the Cahoots record, especially a song called "Last of the Blacksmiths." If you listen to that song, you'll see some similarities. Not in the respect of the chord changes or lyrical content really, but I do mention the Blacksmiths in the third verse. And that record was really about the bygone America, and there's no more blacksmiths, and the old railroad, and everything is too modernized and commercialized, and they sort of hit on that. And to me, it was sort of reflection of what's going on, where there's so much media, social media is really what the song is about, where music doesn't have the same potency that it did, as far as changing people's minds or having them think. So in that respect, I think it was an anti-anthem, because it's sort of like that helplessness that that there's no way to kind of move things along with music like it used to be. And it's not that I necessarily believe that's 100% correct, but that's the feeling I was trying to get in the song.
The timing again is pretty spot on for what's happening now, because it truly seems like it's always going to seem like this, but no song is going to solve what we are going through right now. And as the song says, we have to find another way. So I think it's a very appropriate song for this moment.
There's a bit of sarcasm in that line too, that hey, you just put down the guitar or the piano, you better find another way to get your point across. So it was a little bit of that sort of sarcasm with the negativity of things. But it also points to the second verse with religion and followers disappearing, and just this sort of sheep-like mentality, whatever direction that's going to point you in. So I kind of wanted to touch on those ways. And it's kind of similar to the band song. Again, it kind of hit a nerve. And even sonically, I wanted that big sort of resonant piano sound. And, I have a bunch of layered pianos to try to get that compressed, piano sound in there. I sort of do the little picking thing, Robbie Robertson-esque type of guitar part. But again, I did the song probably, I recorded it about 3 or 4 times. And the first version, which I should actually play for you at some point, is completely different. And it just grew into this monster and just became, I guess, a little more modern. And that's when I started, juxtaposing some of these electronic elements into it, because I just felt like it needed some extra, volume, some extra strength. So it was a fun song to do. I don't think I would come out with a song like that again, just because it's sort of unique. I don't know if it can be replicated, but for me, but it just came out, different than what I thought it was. But I like the way it came out overall. Took a long time.
Okay, so why don't we go into the mix of No Use Writing a Song?
Sure.
Beginning, you can walk us through the making of the song.
So this is the introduction that we were talking about here before. Hopefully you can hear this. Oh, actually it's this one. Okay, so this is the backwards drum part. You can hear that. I paired this up with the piano, reverse piano. So it's basically the intro, and then we also have a little bit of organ in here as well. So there's a sort of like a Hammond type of drone that goes throughout the song. Where's it here? This one. This is the start of it. And then we have the drums that kick in. Several tracks of drums. There's a kick drum, dirty kick drum, sub kick, another sub kick, and all the snares. So snare room with a bit of effects on that. Toms, some distortion. More snare verb. I'm sort of dying here a little bit. I freezed a couple things, but apparently. So I got somewhere around 63 tracks here, which is not, with most modern mixes, that's nothing. But considering there's really only a few elements really going on, the drums, bass, the piano parts. Anything specifically you want to delve into?
Let's go into.
I know we talked about some of the. Well, I can go into the piano.
That add like spacing.
Yes. So one track of piano. So this is the. Let me just unmute these 1 second. Unsolo these rather. Okay. Yes. All right. So this is the basic piano part. Little delay. And that's all fine and well, but again, I was looking for that just additional sort of resonance from the piano to make it just a little bit more spacey. So I added I took the track, duplicated it, and I put on one of the Soundtoys plugins, which is the which one did I use here? Yeah, Crystallizer. So this is a cool plugin, and it basically takes whatever you have and just creates, they call them, crystals. So just little reverberations that you can manipulate in a number of different ways. So you can take the reverberations, reverse them, do all kinds of crazy stuff. So I took the piano and added the crystallizer, as well as some additional echo and filters, and I came up with this sort of thing. I can't believe it's with the piano. So with the piano, it creates this reverb type of effect. And then, some of the other elements that we talked about, some of the weird effects, which I had effects, different sounds triggering even off the tambourines and off the shakers, and just creating kind of in those more chaotic parts later in the song, some of those elements that are in here that are kind of buried in. Take that off, sorry. There we go. So all this stuff was created basically from the tambourines and the shakers, all these weird effects here. So some of that stuff is going on in the mix as well, to varying degrees. I have also some doubling. So in the last chorus, or actually when the guitar solo starts, I added in some additional elements to the bass, where there's like this synth bass thing going on as well. So this thing is basically doing exactly what the bass is doing.
Close Encounters Mothership.
That's a Close Encounters Mothership. That's you barely notice it when you're listening to the mix. It's just, again, it's buried in there.
I did not even hear that until you mentioned that the last time.
Yeah, it's funny. I can hear it, and when I was mixing it, again, it's just subtle. It's just there to kind of pick it up, lift it off the ground a little bit more. And to me, it was just adding these certain things in to, sort of unconsciously kind of mess with your ears a little bit. And, a lot of the guitars here, were doubled as well. So I got... So in the verse... And there's another one that's, I even forgot about this one. Mixed in with the, this is another sound that's buried in there that sounds alien. Of course, my system's getting glitchy, but that's another one that I just sound. That's the same guitar part, but just duplicated the track and put it through some weird effects, just to have it kind of sitting there a little bit in the mix, creating a little bit more ambiance. So again, a lot of this stuff. There's even another organ here that is barely noticeable. This thing. Kind of smells like this guy. So those sort of things that are, just pop in here and there. And I wanted some of these sounds to kind of weave in and out, not necessarily playing all the way through.
It's a great song, and there was a lot going on in it, and it was funny because when I first heard it, it was you told me that the EP was Americana meets Alan Parsons Project, and I wasn't really really wasn't expecting as layered as but it really is.
Yeah, I wanted to do again something a little bit different, and I wanted to play more of the producer role. So in my mind, I was casting roles for all these different parts. It's kind of like when you write in the studio and do it on the spot type of thing, where you're not a singer-songwriter type of record necessarily, but just more of a project. And I was even going to name it something different. I was going to have a different project name because I didn't think it was, but I just went and I didn't. I abandoned that idea. So that was basically the approach of this, and knowing that I was going to do it all myself. I sort of went in that sort of direction, and I'm happy the way it came out, just because I was beat myself in the head over getting the mixes how I wanted them to sound. So it wasn't the writing of it; it was just the the overall sound, and it just took a long time to sort of harness that and get it to sound where I wanted it to sound. And again, a lot of these were just minuscule things, but a lot of work, but it was fun.
Well, thank you for that look at No Use Writing a Song from your new EP, DoubleLife. We'll be back next week to explore the second song on the EP, Highway Sun, which was actually the first single off the record. If you want to check out DoubleLife, just go to christianbeach.net, where you can find links to all the ways you can download or stream the EP, and you can find some videos there as well. Christian, thank you for discussing No Use Writing a Song with us. We'll see you next week for Highway Sun.
Thanks, Brian. Have a good night. Look forward to next week.
You too. Take care.